living here in America, we have Christian friends, Jewish friends. So, what is the Islamic perspective on these other faiths?
Islam actually introduces the most beautiful way of interacting with other faiths. For example, there's a chapter in the Holy Qur'an entitled the chapter of the non-believers, the kafirun. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the Prophet, asking the Prophet to initiate a dialogue with them. And he says, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. Tell them that, O non-believers, I do not worship what you worship. And that is probably where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was referring to the idol worshippers. لا أعبد ما تعبدون. I don't worship what you worship. And you do not worship what I worship, because you worship idols and I worship the one and only God. But in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tell them, Ya Rasulullah, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. For you is your faith, for you is your way, and for me remains my way and my faith. Which means, Ya Rasulullah, at the end of the day, or the Prophet of God, you ought to live at peace with them. You ought to live in a peaceful environment rather than coming and having long discussions and debates, battles and wars over what you believe and what you worship. That is one of the chapters within the Holy Quran that is extremely beautiful, that has a very beautiful message. Number two was the concept of recognizing other faiths. You see, for the most part, a lot of people don't understand any other faith or recognize any other faith besides their own faith. For example, if you're a Catholic, all you know is your own people, your own church, and your own religion. And rarely people go and study other religions and recognize other faiths. If you're a Muslim, then all you know is about Islam, your own mosque, and your own people. Islam says, let's recognize that other faiths exist. And that is a big step. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hajj, the chapter entitled The Pilgrimage, recognizes the إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, the believers, وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا, the Jews, وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, the pagans, the idol worshippers, the Magans, the Jews and the Christians, the Christians and the Sabians. So 7 groups, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes them within the Holy Quran. And then asks His Prophet to unite with them under peace and to promote social justice. This is again in the Holy Quran, so recognizing other faiths. Third was the respect that Quran gave specifically to the Christians and the Jews, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells His Prophet to initiate a dialogue with the Christians and the Jews. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ, tell the people of the book, who are the Christians and the Jews, تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Let us come together under one common understanding, under one common goal, under one common umbrella, which is to recognize that there is only one Lord. Let us worship Him together and not take partners with Allah. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَنْ لَا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ أَحَدًا. And Islam here introduces us to the concept of respecting other faiths, having a dialogue with them, especially with the Christians and the Jews, initiating the dialogue. Allah in the Holy Quran says to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, you're the one that starts the conversation. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ, you go and tell them, you initiate the dialogue with them. Not only that, but to respect other faiths through the action of Rasulullah. For example, history writes that the Prophet saw a Jewish body being taken to a graveyard, and he stood up out of respect for that deceased person, for that funeral. And they told him, O the Messenger of God, why do you stand? For he is one of the people that did not believe in you. He is a Jew, and he's even dead. He's no longer alive. the Prophet said the most important thing is that he's a human being. And the successor of the Prophet, Imam Ali, while he was appointed to be the fourth caliph, had an interesting letter written to one of his representatives or governors, that he writes there in his letter to Malik al-Ashtar, his representative or his governor, that you have to make people feel comfortable with you as being a leader, because they'll be divided into two categories. Either they're going to be your brothers in faith, meaning they're going to be Muslims, or they're going to end up being your brothers in humanity. For all of you come from Adam and Eve. And that spirit is the spirit of Islam that teaches us that we have to respect other faiths, we have to have dialogues with them, and we have to consider them our brothers and sisters in humanity, and we have to treat them in the best ways, just like we would want to be treated ourselves.